As we close out the month of September, 28 teams remain undefeated up to this point through the year. And we already know the big time names, the USCs, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Georgias of the world. They're going to get their flowers because of the programs that they are. They're highlight teams, they're blue blood institutions, they're favorites to win not only their conferences, but even the college football playoff. They deserve all the love and praise for what they've been able to build in the offseason and translate that over into regular season wins. But who are some of the teams that are currently undervalued or maybe a little bit overrated in terms of their 4-0 status? That's what we're going to find out right now. There's a handful of teams that aren't in the top 10 of the college football rankings. And let's go ahead and figure out, do they belong higher up, or are they actually ranked where they should be? Michael, who's our first team?
Maryland.
I'm going to say that they're not overrated, but they're not underrated. Look at the offense right now. They've been fine. They rank inside the top 28 in scoring as terms of total offense. I think that they're ranked outside the top 30. So they're a good team. I think that they are more so that spoiler roster. Like, they can easily beat up on really good teams. They have a matchup coming up in 2 weeks against Ohio State. I would not be shocked to see them get that massive win. I could see them beating up on Penn State, say in early November. I could see them getting an upset win over Michigan. I could also see them losing all 3 of those games and finishing off the year 9-3. And then once again, probably being bottom tier of the top 25 rankings. They're good. They're not great. They're probably more so utilized as that spoiler team, not the team that you're expecting to go ahead and make an epic run through the Big Ten East and find their way into Indianapolis.
Syracuse.
I kind of put them at underrated. Guys, do you know where Syracuse ranks in terms of scoring offense right now? Number 6 in the country. USC, Oregon, Washington, Oklahoma, and Washington State are the only teams that currently have a higher points per game total. In terms of total offense, they rank inside the top 25. Syracuse right now is actually in the top 10 at number 9. Their defense isn't elite by any standards. Currently, in terms of scoring, they rank number 7. In terms of total yards allowed, they rank number 25. They haven't really played anybody of value to where I'd be able to put them a little bit higher, but they're not even in the top 25 rankings. And this is a Dino Babers roster that last year had to face a ton of trials and tribulations because of they were going into a must-win situation with the coaching staff that probably underachieved. And they actually were ranked inside the top 15 at one point. This weekend's matchup against Clemson, I think, gives you a better indication on where they stand. But I would have them in the top 25 going into this game. They look really well balanced. They're playing excellent football behind their quarterback in Garrett Schrader, and they're putting up points, and the defense is eliminating a lot of third down conversions to get the ball back to the offense and allow them to score.
Air Force.
I would kind of put them right now as properly rated. They do have one of the better defenses in college football. Top 15 in scoring so far, 12.8 points per game. Offensively, they also are putting up decent numbers. If I'm not mistaken, they currently rank 38th in scoring. They're averaging like 34.5 points per game. The Mountain West is tricky because of I want to be able to see them put up these massive numbers against really compelling teams. There's like 2 or 3 in the Mountain West this year that actually stand out. But I do think as of this point, it's hard to say that Troy Calhoun has not built something promising for the Falcons. I would probably say if they continue to win, you're going to see them in the top 25 very soon.
Duke.
Properly rated, maybe a little bit overrated. Listen, they had a massive win over Clemson, which every single week is going to start looking worse and worse if Clemson can't find ways to get a victory. But they are a team that right now has been able to hold their own standard. They beat up on Duke. They beat up on Clemson. They're sitting at 4-0. They have a game this weekend against Notre Dame. That will truly, I think, give you a better indication on how well they handle offenses that are clicking and wheeling and dealing. And they're going to have some matchups ahead that truly give you a better status of where they stand. Florida State's in 2 weeks. They got a game against Louisville coming up. North Carolina still is on the schedule. I'm not ready to rule this team underrated. I will say Mike Elko is going to be a favorite to get a premier job this offseason for what he's done the last 2 years in Durham.
North Carolina.
Overrated, in my opinion. I get it. They have the number one quarterback in college football in Drake May. I understand that right now they also have a very good, sound run game led by Omari and Hampton. But I just do not believe in this defense whatsoever. And there's a reason for it. The defensive line has been playing fine. Outside of that, not really a lot to write home about. They're currently 57th in scoring, 68 in total yards allowed, and they're one of the worst teams at stopping third down. So eventually North Carolina is going to get exposed. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I would not have them as high ranked as they are. They're currently, if I'm not mistaken, number 15 in the country. I'd probably have them closer to number 20 or number 25.
Kansas.
I go underrated. Guys, you do realize that this is a team that is one of 3 remaining rosters in the Big 12 that remains undefeated up to this point. They have one of the best quarterbacks in college football in Jalen Daniels. They're able to utilize the ground game to their favor, led by Devin Neal. They're very well coached by Lance Leipold. And it's kind of shocking that it took this long for them to be in the top 25. They played Texas this weekend. The last time they marched into Austin, it was one of the biggest wins in program history, the 57-56 overtime matchup. If they find a way to derail Texas's perfect season, they're going to be a top 15 team going into next week. And then they kind of get a slow spurn of games to where they probably can get to 6-0 or 7-0 or 8-0. So I actually say right now, Kansas is very underrated for how they've played, especially when they used backup Jason Bean to start the year when they didn't have Jalen Daniels to come out and play.
Fresno State.
Yeah, I actually buy into this team. This team is very underrated. Fresno State lost everything this past offseason. They didn't have Jake Haener anymore. They lost their number one wide receiver. Kalen DeBoer left 2 years ago to become the head coach at Washington. They bring back in Jeff Tedford, and they really have not missed a beat. They're number 21 in scoring, averaging 38.8 points per game. They also have done a really good job at elementing their status as a more well-rounded roster. They're averaging about 430 yards per game. The real thing that stands out for me with Fresno State is their defense. It ranks 23rd nationally in the country. They are very well put together. Tedford's done a great job of bringing back in that same culture. It was a smart hire to bring back somebody that wanted to be a part of the program. I believe that Fresno State right now is the best group of 5 team in the country.
Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville is very underrated. I told you guys at the start of the year, Louisville's going to hang around. No one's going to talk about them because of all these other teams in the ACC that are getting a lot of praise. North Carolina was one. Florida State was one. Miami was one. Clemson was supposed to be one. And here's Louisville that is finding a way just to remain in games. They're not perfect, but they are number 9 in scoring, 43.3 points per game. They did a very good job of working the transfer portal in their favor. They currently are a top 65 defense in college football. If they can get that number up to, say, top 50, they're going to get some upset wins along the way. And they do play Notre Dame. They do play Miami. They could end up being 10-2, and that other team that represents the ACC in Charlotte against who I would say right now is going to be Florida State.
Kentucky.
Very underrated. Very, very, very underrated. This is going to be a must-see game this weekend against Florida. If they get the victory, they're going to be 5-0. At that point, they're going to have to be ranked inside the top 25. Kentucky right now is top 25 in scoring. They're top 25 in rushing. They're top 30, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in total offense. Not to mention, they also have a very stout defense. They rank 21st in scoring defense, and they're ranking the top 35 in total defense. They're number 21, actually, in total defense right now. So they've done a good job. The problem is that they haven't been able to play up to their standard against lesser tier opponents. Like, they probably would be ranked if they didn't nearly go down to the wire against Eastern Kentucky. But you do have to believe that right now this team is clicking on all 3 cylinders. They're very, very good.
Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri's underrated. If you were to switch out Missouri's schedule was, say, let's go with Georgia for that matter. Would they not be a top 15 team in the country? Because they would have faced off against a very good South Carolina team, and they would have handled business entirely. Oh, wait. They've kind of done that because they beat up on 15th ranked Kansas State, and they handled business on the road in what was it? I think it was Memphis, if I'm not mistaken, against the Tigers. They played really well. Luther Burden is a stud at wide receiver. Brady Cook's did a good job of elevating the offense, and Eli Drinkwitz is getting this team believing in the culture. They're going to get an upset win here or there.
Liberty.
Liberty very much underrated. They're 4-0. They're top 10 in scoring offense, and they're top 15 in total defense. Jimmy Chadwell's doing something big.
Attention,
Hey
Medicare.
guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.